Auto industry as we know it could very well be in the early stages of its own demise. Everything was fine. In 2019, the auto industry was humming along, large volume, large profits. COVID happened. It went to crap after that, especially for the consumer. But record profits were happening during the supply shortages right after the big COVID pandemic. But when the entire world is disrupted, it is a ripple effect. It can take months, years, maybe even longer to see the effects from something as world-changing as the pandemic and part shortages, etc. Now we have all-time high interest rates, or at least seemingly in my lifetime, all-time high car prices and home prices and all-time high grocery prices. Everything is just so expensive. Insurance is more expensive. I could keep going, all right? And now we're seeing the picture starting to unravel. Profits for Nissan right now compared to last quarter are down 99%. It's unraveling quickly. We're going to get more into them, but Stellantis reducing output, cutting prices after weak US demand. It's not just them. We know Tesla's struggling as well. They had their gross margin fall to under 15%, its lowest level in 5 years. But not every company is reeling yet from the after effects of everything I mentioned at the beginning of this video. Honda is hoping to outpace the industry in 2024. They've already passed Stellantis in the United States, but hold the phone. Things on the other side of the world in China are an absolute bloodbath still for the Japanese automakers, and it doesn't look like it's going to end anytime soon. We got a lot to break down and discuss today. Make sure you have your snacks and drinks, buckle in, and if you enjoy this coverage, smash a like button, subscribe for more auto industry news. This week, I also have a Honda Ridgeline for review, and I also have a Chevy Trax small little compact crossover, subcompact crossover. Good variety there here on the channel for reviews, but in the meantime, we have a lot of changes in the industry in a short amount of time after Q2 financial results are starting to hit us. CEO Makoto Uchida says Nissan US incentive spending nearly erases their quarterly profit. Anytime I watch a video on YouTube, I'm getting ads from Nissan almost every single time to start the video. They're spending huge amounts, not only on, let's say, cash on the hood or cash back or 0% financing or whatever they're doing, but they're spending tons on advertising, not only on YouTube, but when I watch TV shows on my streaming services, I'm seeing Nissan ads there as well. And it all starts with their cash cow, or what used to be their cash cow, the Nissan Rogue. After a lackluster launch of the updated crossover, when did they update it? Well, they updated it I think this past year, but it's the most minor refresh. Before the refresh, I think they got rid of the 2.5 liter naturally aspirated engine, and now we have a small 3-cylinder turbo, VC turbo, and it's not a bad engine, but it's hooked up to the CVT and it saps any sort of enjoyment out of it. But Japanese automaker is hoisting incentives on mounting inventories of the outgoing model, which is soaring expenses that have erased operating income. Uchida said, "We were unable to boost volume as expected. This has been a very challenging quarter for Nissan. We already mentioned that their profit has collapsed 99% to $6.4 million in the last 3 months. Worldwide sales have also flatlined to 787,000 vehicles in the previous quarter. North American volume did decline almost 2%, with a 3% slide in the United States to 237,000 units. Also on my end, Nissan did postpone the Kicks event that I was supposed to go to in just a few days. That event's been postponed, and I don't know when it's going to be rescheduled. Now, it's not just Nissan. The Toyota event I was going to in September for the 4Runner, that got postponed too. So the auto industry is just, it's kind of a hot mess express, which is fine by me because it gives me so much to talk about. Most of Nissan's spending to move cars has been to buy down loan rates instead of cash on the hood in an effort to buoy resale values. But the problem is, they've already destroyed resale values by selling a ton of fleet vehicles, and those fleet vehicles go to the rental car companies. They have them for a year or two, maybe 3, and then they sell them for bargain basement prices, which is going to destroy residual value. And it's also going to hurt new car values. It's a mess for Nissan. I've covered this seemingly for the past 6 months or so. I call it the death spiral with Nissan selling so much to fleet companies. Nissan's global inventory, including dealer and company stocks, has swelled since March of 2022, where it stood at 250,000 vehicles. Now it's crept past 640,000 units in inventory. So what is Nissan going to do? Well, they're going to reduce production for this quarter, and they're thinking that the Murano and the Armada is going to help sell vehicles. While the Armada is not out yet, the QX80 I think is beginning to hit now, which is the Infinity version of the Armada. But the Murano, no one cares about the Murano. I don't even know why they still have the Murano. If the Murano doesn't come in a hybrid, what's the point? If the Murano doesn't get rid of a CVT, which it might, I don't know yet, I mean, what's the point? Now, while they're suffering in North America, they're up about 7% in Europe. They're up about 3% in China, and they're down about 8% in Japan. Really, the only Nissans I can recommend over the competition is probably the Frontier pickup truck. And the Pathfinder is a solid option. I don't know if it's better than its competitor. It was right there at the top. I can't recommend the Rogue against its competition. I can't recommend, well, the Kicks. Well, it's getting a redesign, so stay tuned for the Kicks. But unless you get a bargain basement price or lease on Nissan, it's just hard to recommend at this point because other manufacturers have better powertrains in their vehicles. Nissan has good looking cars for the most part. It's just that when you pair the CVT, which has a terrible reputation right now for being unreliable, and then they haven't had any hybrids in America. And if you don't have hybrids right now, you're not going to be doing well. And we're going to keep moving. Stellantis is reducing output, cutting prices after earnings plunge on weak U.S. results. Margins have declined significantly in North America, which is Stellantis' key region for profits. Watch my night review of the Rubicon 392 Final Edition. No one seems to be interested in it, on my channel anyways. The truck is insane, that Jeep, but the fact that it has like no views on it, it's almost indicative of what the market thinks of Stellantis products right now. Now, net income for Stellantis is down 48% for the first half of the year. Now, Nissan's net income was down 73%. So they're both doing horrible. It's not looking good for either of them. The company's performance in the first half of 2024 fell short of our expectations, says CEO Carlos Tavares in a statement. Ironically, Tavares's income rose 56% this past year, up to 36.5 million euros, but almost $40 million. And his company is floundering. Like Nissan, they're betting on new models to make their vehicles more desirable and to stop the bleeding, but I don't think it's going to help them any, to be honest. So a total of 20 planned for this year. Now that's probably throughout the world. I don't think they would have 20 new vehicles, but who knows? And they said that they're going to be introducing the Dodge Charger. How many people are going to be interested in the electric Dodge Charger? I think the Dodge Charger people are people who like V6s and especially V8s. Now we have the inline six on it, but we don't know when that's going to be announced, or should I say available on the market. It's not going to be this year, I don't think. A refreshed Ram 1500, how much will that help? It'll be interesting. I just reviewed the refreshed Ram 1500 Tungsten and it was very impressive, but who's buying $90,000 pickup trucks right now? Moving on to Tesla, whose quarter two earnings represented a 15% drop in gross margin, its lowest in 5 years. Tesla's stock was down 12% on July 24th. Their profit is down 45% from $2.7 billion to $1.5 billion. The global sales fell about 5% compared to the second quarter last year. Tesla's operating margin is now down to 6.3%, down from 9.6% in quarter 2 2023. I mean, Elon's trying to pump the stock market for his brand on the backs of autonomy and robo-taxis. The thing is, you need to have a cash cow, which is your cars, in theory, to have a long-term future. And is autonomy and robo-taxi the future for Tesla? It seems to be all that Musk can think about. They're not going to put a plant in Mexico because if Trump gets in, Trump is going to tariff cars made in Mexico, and that's going to make things like the Tacoma more expensive in theory as well. So it'll be interesting to see how that all shakes out. Honda, though, seems to be doing quite well. They want to be up 10% in sales this year in North America, which is not quite as high as they were in 2019, but they're clawing back their way to the top there. Honda's hybrids are crushing it, and that's something I wish I had in the Ridgeline that I'm driving right now this week. It's just like, man, the one thing they make this truck better other than improved styling would be give me a hybrid powertrain, give this thing 30 miles per gallon, and then it would be almost like the perfect truck in my opinion. But Honda doesn't seem to have anything for their large platform vehicles on the electrified end for many years at this point. Same thing for Nissan. Nissan has no hybrids for any of their vehicles, unfortunately for them, for the American market until 2026 timeframe or so. I mean, in recent history, Honda and Acura combined, let's say in 2017 was their peak at 1.641 million vehicles. After a real rough year in 2022 with the chip supply issues, Honda got back up to 1.3 last year, and they're aiming for 1.4 million, which is still, again, behind the pre-pandemic highs that they were at. And with them growing and Stellantis shrinking, Honda has passed Stellantis. But not everything's rosy for Honda, because in China, the world's largest market, it's getting really messy over there. If you guys think that it's starting to fall apart here, it's accelerated over there much faster. So let's get into what's going on, especially for the Japanese automakers. Honda is slashing their production in gasoline cars in China by 1/3, equivalent to 10% of its global output. 3 of its 7 production lines in China is going kaputs. Overnight, essentially, China was Honda's #1 market, and now it's North America. Now, even though this is Honda's first cutback in China, it's the biggest by any Japanese automaker there during the current turndown. Now, Mitsubishi just packed up and left at the end of last year. They're no longer in China, but they didn't have this many vehicles being sold there. So it was an easier exit for them. And the scary thing in China right now is overcapacity. We have tons of low-priced Chinese-made vehicles not being bought in China, so they're exporting them into Southeast Asia, which is a Japanese automaker stronghold. And so these Japanese automakers are losing share, of course, in China, but also in Southeast Asia against Chinese autos. Look at Honda, Toyota, Nissan's growth in 2021 here, and then look at this very fast decline all the way in 2024, and we haven't hit the bottom yet. Hino Motors of Toyota is liquidating their Shanghai Hino engine subsidiary next year. That's been around since 2003. Nissan last month closed a factory in China, cutting its production capacity in China by about 10%. Nissan's plants, as a result, now are only operating around 50% capacity. That's typically not very profitable. Honda sales are down 40% by volume on the year so far. So you could say the first half in China, Honda's down 40%. Japanese automakers will try to mount a comeback by cutting costs and improving their ability to meet EV demand and plug-in hybrid demand, but I think it's pretty much a forgone market for them at this point. Even though they're still selling millions of vehicles, together they're at 1.5. It's just going to keep going down, but they might be so big that they can wait things out. A lot of these smaller Chinese manufacturers, they're not in it for the long game because they're not making any profits, all right? It's just a bloodbath right now. So in theory, the bigger companies have more blood to lose, and so they could last the bleeding a little bit longer. So this could go back up. If a lot of these Chinese companies fail, there might just be a handful of Chinese companies that own the entire Chinese market, while the Japanese automakers will never return to any sort of meaningful volume in China. Time will tell. But Volkswagen's struggling mightily there. General Motors is struggling mightily there as well. It's not just the Japanese automakers, it's any foreign automaker that has a joint venture in China, and including Tesla, which doesn't have a joint venture in China, but their production and sales are getting destroyed as well. Here's what's mind-blowing. Their new energy vehicles, which are plug-in hybrids and EVs, is forecast to reach 36 million vehicles next year. To put that in perspective, the United States market is like 16 or 17 million vehicle sales per year. This is more than double the amount of US sales in production, but the Chinese market is not consuming that many vehicles. They're selling about 16 million in China. That means the additional 20 million vehicles are going to be shipped out of China to be sold in other markets. That's why the government put a 100% tariff on these Chinese vehicles, because it's just going to destroy our industry like it's going to be destroying Southeast Asia's automotive industry as well. Excess Chinese cars have been making their way to Southeast Asia and Latin American markets. I haven't even talked about Latin America, but it's affecting there massively as well. And Subaru recently decided to end auto production in Thailand. It's a mess. But like Honda, at least Honda in the United States, Hyundai Motor is posting a small profit increase in Q2 on hybrids. So isn't that crazy? Hybrids are fueling profits right now for Honda, Toyota, Hyundai. And if you don't have hybrids, you're losing millions and millions of dollars. Your profits are getting absolute ravaged if you don't have profitable hybrids. So Hyundai Motor said on Thursday that its operating profit increased 0.7% in the second quarter, which is now $3.1 billion from the same period last year. As strong hybrid sales offset falling demand for electric vehicles. Hyundai makes some of the best electric vehicles, but they're still not convenient for many markets, and a lot of people just have no desire. What works for them is vehicles that don't change their lifestyle. A hybrid, especially a non-plug-in hybrid, does not change lifestyle. You get better fuel economy without having to do anything extra to the car. You don't have to plan charging. You don't have to plan where you're going to stop. You don't have to think about preconditioning the back. All that stuff is out the window on just a simple hybrid. Strong hybrid sales of 122,000+ vehicles is up 26% compared to a year earlier, which is making up for the drop in EV sales, which have fallen 25%. Hyundai's banking on hybrids in the short term and medium term. In the long term, they're still expecting EV demand to lead the market for environmentally friendly vehicles. But if the government's saying one thing and the consumers are saying another thing, what's eventually going to win? Well, the consumer is always going to win, in my opinion here. Pushing EVs before the market's ready or the infrastructure is ready is just not going to end well for any of these companies. Luckily, Hyundai, Kia can fall back on their successful and practical hybrids. The auto market is changing so fast. EVs go up, EVs go down. Hybrids have been on a steady increase, and that seems to be what people really, really want right now because, well, not only that, it seems like the automakers would like that too, unless you're Nissan. Nissan has e-power hybrids all throughout the world. Not in the United States. It's been one of the biggest blunders in, you could say, leadership in the history of the company. The compatriot companies like Toyota and Honda, even Mitsubishi has plug-in hybrids. Now, Subaru hasn't been hurt yet, but Subaru is under the hen's wing of Toyota, and Subaru will have hybrid technology out in the United States before Nissan. I'm a little bit sad for what could befall Nissan in the future. Doesn't look good for Tesla in the near term either, and Stellantis too. And there are other companies that I didn't even cover today that are not doing so hot as well. So this could be the unraveling of the auto market. What does this mean for the consumer? Well, I think that if you're in the position to buy a car, you're going to be able to get really good deals as the year goes on. You're going to see these manufacturers slicing interest rates like Nissan's been doing. You're going to see them putting cash on the hood as well to reduce payments. I don't think Nissan can recover just with a few refreshed products or with the Murano that is all but irrelevant already in the United States market. A new Armada, it's such a low volume vehicle too that people aren't really going to be going head over heels. In fact, I'm going to miss the V8 in the current Armada. I love the current Armada and the QX80 with the V8. They're very, very good vehicles and with that old school hydraulic steering. They're awesome. I'll see you guys sound off in the comments below. If you made it this far, I appreciate you. Thank you guys for all your support on the channel, especially the members of the channel. Thank you guys. Have a great day. And I can't wait to see what the future has in store for the auto market.